Think about the last person who hurt you in a relationship. Now think about the person before that, and the one before that. Different faces, different names, different stories, but somehow the same ending, the same arguments, the same patterns, the same feeling of wondering what is wrong with you. Here is what nobody tells you. Nothing is wrong with you, but something very specific is happening inside your brain. And until you understand it, you will keep walking toward the same person, wearing a different face again and again, without knowing why. Today we are going to change that. We are going to go deeper than most videos on this topic go, into the neuroscience, the psychology, and the childhood architecture that determines who you fall for, why you fall for them, and how you can finally break the pattern. This is not a short conversation, but if you have ever found yourself in the same relationship twice, it is worth every minute. Let us start at the beginning. Not the beginning of your last relationship, the beginning of you. Before you could walk, before you could talk, before you had any conscious understanding of the world, your brain was doing something extraordinary. It was building a template. Psychologist John Bowlby spent decades studying the bond between infants and their caregivers. What he found became one of the most replicated and important discoveries in all of psychology. He called it attachment theory. The basic idea is this: as an infant, you needed your caregiver to survive, not just for food and shelter, but for emotional regulation. You could not manage your own nervous system. You needed someone else to do it for you. And so your brain, in its extraordinary efficiency, began to study your primary caregiver obsessively. How do they respond when I am distressed? Do they come quickly or slowly? Are they consistent or unpredictable? Do they soothe me or do they pull away? Based on thousands of these observations, your brain built a working model, a subconscious blueprint for what relationships are, what love feels like, what to expect from another person, and most importantly, what you need to do to maintain closeness. This blueprint became your attachment style. And here is the critical part. You did not choose it. You were not consulted. It was built before you had language, before you had memory, before you had any ability to evaluate or reject it. It is the most fundamental programming in your relational brain. And it has been running every relationship you have ever had. There are 4 main attachment styles: secure, anxious, avoidant, and disorganized. Understanding which one you carry is the first step to understanding who you keep attracting. Let us go through each one. Secure attachment forms when a caregiver is consistently available, responsive, and warm. The child learns that when I need someone, they will be there. That love is reliable. That closeness is safe. Adults with secure attachment tend to have stable, trusting relationships. They can express needs without fear. They can handle conflict without catastrophizing. They can be alone without panic and close without losing themselves. If this sounds like you, genuinely, not aspirationally, you are in a relatively small group. Research suggests only about 50 to 60% of the population has a secure attachment style, and that number drops in populations that have experienced significant adversity. The rest carry one of 3 insecure attachment styles. Anxious attachment forms when a caregiver is inconsistently available, sometimes warm and present, sometimes distracted, dismissive, or emotionally unavailable. The child never knows which version of the caregiver they will get. The brain's response to this inconsistency is hypervigilance. If I cannot predict when love will be available, I need to be constantly alert for signs of it. I need to do whatever it takes to secure connection before it disappears again. Adults with anxious attachment tend to worry constantly about their relationships. They need frequent reassurance. They interpret silence as rejection, distance as abandonment, conflict as the beginning of the end. They give a great deal in relationships, often too much, because they learn that love has to be earned and maintained through effort. Avoidant attachment forms when a caregiver is consistently emotionally unavailable or dismissive of emotional needs. The child learns that expressing needs does not bring comfort, it brings rejection or indifference. The brain's response is suppression. If closeness is painful and expressing needs is pointless, the safest strategy is self-sufficiency. I do not need anyone. I can handle this alone. Adults with avoidant attachment tend to be fiercely independent. They feel uncomfortable with deep intimacy. They pull away when things get emotionally intense. They often genuinely believe they simply prefer to be alone, without recognizing that this preference was a survival strategy built in childhood. Disorganized attachment forms in the most difficult circumstances, when the caregiver is simultaneously the source of comfort and the source of fear. This happens in homes where there is abuse, severe unpredictability, or significant trauma. The child faces an impossible situation. The person I need to run toward for safety is also the person I need to run away from. There is no strategy that works. The result is a nervous system that never found a coherent way to manage closeness. Adults with disorganized attachment often experience the most turbulent relationships. They simultaneously crave and fear intimacy. They can swing between desperate closeness and sudden withdrawal. Relationships feel both essential and dangerous. Now here is where it gets interesting. Attachment styles do not just determine how you behave in relationships. They determine who you are attracted to, and this is where the pattern begins. Your brain built its relationship template in your earliest years. That template defines what love feels like at a neurological level. Not what love should feel like, what it actually feels like in your body, in your nervous system, right now. And your nervous system is not looking for the best possible partner, it is looking for the familiar one. This is not a flaw. This is how pattern recognition works. Your brain is extraordinarily efficient. It recognizes what it already knows, and it flags familiar emotional territory as safe. Not because it is safe, but because it is known. If you grew up in an environment where love was unpredictable, given and withdrawn, warm then cold, your nervous system learned that this is what love feels like. The uncertainty, the longing, the relief when connection returns. So when you meet someone who is warm, then cold, available, then distant, loving, then withdrawn, your nervous system does not say danger. It says home. The very thing that should be a warning sign feels like recognition. This is called emotional familiarity bias, and it is one of the most powerful and least understood forces in human relationships. It explains why the person who makes you feel completely comfortable and safe in the first week sometimes fails to hold your interest. Your nervous system does not feel the activation it associates with love. It feels too calm, too predictable, too easy. And it explains why the person who creates that familiar cocktail of longing and uncertainty and occasional intense connection can feel like the most alive you have ever felt with another human being. Your nervous system is not reading the situation accurately. It is reading it through the filter of the past. But attachment style and emotional familiarity bias are only two pieces of the puzzle. The third piece is something psychologists call repetition compulsion. Sigmund Freud identified this phenomenon over 100 years ago, and while many of Freud's ideas have not held up to modern scrutiny, this one has. Repetition compulsion is the unconscious drive to recreate unresolved emotional experiences from the past. Not to experience the pain again, but to try to resolve it differently this time. If you grew up with a parent who was emotionally unavailable, there is an unconscious part of you that is still trying to win that love, still trying to prove that you are worth consistent affection, still trying to get the ending that childhood never gave you. And so you are drawn to emotionally unavailable partners, not consciously, not deliberately, but because some part of you believes, without words, without logic, that this time will be different, that this time you will finally be enough, that this time you will get the love that was withheld. This is deeply human and deeply painful because, of course, it does not work. You cannot resolve a childhood wound through an adult relationship with someone who is not your parent. The original wound requires a different kind of healing, but the unconscious drive keeps sending you back to the same emotional territory, hoping for a different result. The fourth piece is self-concept. What you believe about yourself at a deep, often unconscious level determines what you believe you deserve in a relationship. Research by psychologist Sandra Murray found that people consistently choose partners whose regard for them matches their own self-regard. If you believe at your core that you are not quite worthy of consistent love, you will find partners who confirm that belief. Not because you are seeking punishment, because consistency with your self-concept feels true and truth feels safe. This works in both directions. If someone treats you significantly better than your self-concept predicts you deserve, it creates a kind of cognitive dissonance. Something feels off. This is too good. This cannot last. And you may unconsciously behave in ways that push the relationship toward a more familiar dynamic. If someone treats you in ways that confirm your worst beliefs about yourself, it feels uncomfortable, but it also feels real, credible, expected. Changing who you attract therefore requires changing what you believe you deserve, and that is inner work that no relationship can do for you. The fifth piece is nervous system regulation. This is perhaps the most overlooked factor in relationship patterns, and it is one of the most important. Your nervous system has a baseline, a set point of activation that feels normal to you. For people who grew up in calm, predictable environments, that set point is relatively low. Calm feels normal. Stability feels normal. For people who grew up in environments with high levels of stress, conflict, unpredictability, or emotional intensity, the nervous system set point is higher. Some level of activation, some tension, some uncertainty, some drama is the baseline. It is what the body recognizes as normal. And here is the uncomfortable truth. When the nervous system encounters someone who produces that familiar level of activation, the tension, the uncertainty, the highs and lows, it registers as chemistry. What we call chemistry is often not compatibility. It is nervous system recognition. The butterflies you feel with someone who keeps you slightly off balance are not always a sign of connection. They may be a sign of stress hormones, of cortisol and adrenaline, of your nervous system recognizing a familiar pattern of activation. And the absence of butterflies with someone who is stable, kind, and consistent is not necessarily a sign of incompatibility. It may be the unfamiliar feeling of actual safety, which for a dysregulated nervous system can feel boring, flat, wrong. Learning to distinguish between chemistry and nervous system recognition is one of the most important skills you can develop in relationships. The sixth piece is what researchers call the anxious-avoidant trap. This is perhaps the most common relationship pattern there is, and understanding it can feel like someone finally turned on a light in a very dark room. Anxious attachment and avoidant attachment are, in many ways, complementary. They fit together like a key in a lock, and they are drawn to each other with remarkable consistency. Here is why. The anxiously attached person craves closeness, reassurance, and consistent connection. They are hypervigilant to signs of distance. When their partner pulls away, their anxiety spikes and they move toward, seeking reassurance, needing connection, trying to close the gap. The avoidantly attached person feels uncomfortable with too much closeness. When their partner moves toward them intensely and seeking reassurance, needing connection, they feel overwhelmed and pull away. They need space to feel comfortable. So the anxious partner pursues, the avoidant partner retreats, which makes the anxious partner pursue harder, which makes the avoidant partner retreat further, and then something shifts. The avoidant partner, now with enough space, relaxes. They begin to miss the connection. They move toward. They offer warmth and closeness. The anxious partner, who has been in agony during the distance, feels the relief of connection returning. The intensity of that relief, the dopamine hit of reconnection after anxiety, feels like love. Feels like proof of the relationship's depth, until the avoidant partner feels too close again and pulls back, and the cycle repeats. This cycle can go on for years, decades. It is painful for both people. Neither person is the villain. Both are acting from deep, pre-verbal programming that neither of them chose, but it is also, for both people, intensely familiar. And familiarity, as we have established, registers as home. Breaking this pattern requires both people to understand it and to be willing to do the work of developing what is called earned security, the process of consciously building the capacity for secure attachment, even when it was not modeled in childhood. It is possible. Research is very clear on this. Attachment styles are not destiny. They are defaults, and defaults can be changed. Not quickly, not easily, but genuinely. So how do you actually break the pattern? The first step is recognition. You cannot change a pattern you cannot see, and most of these patterns operate entirely below conscious awareness. They feel like preferences, like chemistry, like falling in love, not like programming. Start by mapping your pattern. Write down your last 3 significant relationships, not the surface details, who they were, what they did, the emotional texture of each one. How did the beginning feel? What did the middle feel like? How did the ending feel? Look for the emotional similarities, not the circumstantial ones, the felt sense of each relationship. Chances are you will find a pattern that surprised you with its consistency. The second step is understanding your attachment style. There are well-validated attachment style assessments available online. Taking one is not a diagnosis, it is information. It gives you language for something that has been running wordlessly in the background of every relationship you have ever had. Understanding your style does not excuse behavior, yours or anyone else's, but it explains it, and explanation is the beginning of choice. The third step is nervous system work. If your nervous system is set to a high baseline of activation, no amount of intellectual understanding will make stability feel appealing. You have to work at the body level. This means practices that regulate the nervous system over time. Consistent exercise, meditation or breath work, therapy, and especially somatic therapy, which works with the body rather than just the mind. These are not quick fixes. They are a gradual recalibration of what your body recognizes as normal. As your nervous system set point lowers, calm begins to feel less boring and more like peace. Stability feels less flat and more like safety. The people who used to feel like too much begin to feel like too much. And the people who used to feel like not enough begin to feel like exactly right. The fourth step is self-worth work. This is where therapy is most valuable. Specifically, exploring the beliefs you hold about yourself at the deepest level, not the ones you express publicly, the ones that live underneath, the ones that say things like I am too much or I am not enough or love always comes with conditions or I have to earn affection. These beliefs did not come from nowhere. They came from experiences, and experiences can be re-examined, recontextualized, and gradually rewritten, not erased, but no longer allowed to author your future. The fifth step is slowing down. Many of the patterns we have discussed thrive on speed. The intensity of fast connection, the rush of early chemistry, the feeling of falling. Slow connection is the antidote. Not slow as in boring, slow as in deliberate, paying attention not just to how exciting someone makes you feel, but to how safe, not just to the highs they create, but to how you feel in the quiet, ordinary moments. Not just to who they are on their best day, but to who they are when things are difficult. Chemistry is felt immediately. Character is revealed over time. And the pattern you are trying to break was built on chemistry. The pattern you are trying to build runs on character. The sixth step, and perhaps the most important, is recognizing that you are not trying to find the perfect person. You are trying to become someone who can recognize and receive genuine love. That is a different project entirely. Because the deepest reason we keep attracting the wrong people is not that we have bad taste or bad luck. It is that we have not yet learned to feel safe with the right ones. Safety feels unfamiliar. Kindness can feel suspicious. Consistency can feel boring. Genuine availability can feel like something must be wrong with them. The goal is not to find someone who feels like home from the first moment. The goal is to expand what home feels like, to include safety and stability and kindness and peace. That expansion does not happen by finding the right person. It happens by doing the work that makes you ready for them. The pattern ends the moment you stop running toward what is familiar and start walking toward what is healthy. It does not happen overnight. It is not a single decision. It is a long, sometimes uncomfortable, always worthwhile process of choosing yourself, your nervous system, your self-concept, your attachment, and slowly, deliberately rewriting the template. You were not broken by your past. You were shaped by it, and what was shaped can be reshaped. If this video changed how you see your own patterns, the next one goes even deeper into how the person you choose as a partner literally changes the architecture of your brain. It is one of the most fascinating things in all of relationship science. It is worth watching.